Hey guys, how's it going? My name's Kakin, or Nick as most people call me. I'm a current competitive player in the APAC region and have multiple seasons of experience in the national level. I'm also a Challenger League champion MVP, and this is Siege Basic Competitive Fundamentals.
But I can't kick it with an issue on the front. I got diamonds on my neck and I don't really mean to stunt. Right down, she really just wanna blunt. Cause they bad bitches don't want love, they wanna have fun.
Okay guys, so welcome to part 1 of Siege Basic Competitive Fundamentals. So we've got my character here, the character I'm most known for, Smoke. He is one of the longest standing operators in competitive that hasn't had many changes. He's had a few here and there, a couple bugs, couple patches, just to make him a little bit more difficult to play. But he's more or less been in the game for a long time, and I don't think he's going to be removed for a long time. So if you pick him up, he's going to be a great one to keep for the long run. You can always slot into a team, and yeah, he's just great to pick up. This guide is mostly for competitive, but if you want to play ranked, that's fine. You can apply this stuff to ranked, just don't think about it too much. Ranked is usually less coordinated and less competitive. Smoke isn't a great character to play during ranked. Smoke's always ranking low as a defender. It takes a lot of thinking to be a Smoke player and to position yourself well because he's really dependent on positioning. I'm just going to go through here and we're going to go through attachments first. So he's got two weapons, of course. We'll go through his loadout. He's got the FMG9, which you will see players running here and there. Players that like to play more aggressive and usually have a backup shotgun player like a Oryx or a Alibi or even a Mute because he's just Smoke with a different type of utility. If you want to take longer range gunfights, the FMG9 is available, but most of the time you will see Smokes running the shotgun, the M590A1, one of the best shotguns in the game, if not the best. Attachments wise, it honestly doesn't matter. I like to run laser sight. A lot of people do because a shotgun's something you can easily hit fire with and it's very strong. So, you want to reduce the time it takes between shooting you and your opponent, and if you attach a laser sight, it'll make it a lot easier to kill them while not aiming down sights. Sights doesn't really matter, just whatever works for you. With the SMG11, there was a new patch, so he does have this other pistol, I will say first, which you don't want to use because the SMG11 is by far the best gun in the defense's arsenal at the moment. So it has gotten the addition of muzzle brake, and in this current patch, which is the Grim Sky release patch, muzzle brake is very strong, especially for a high fire rate weapon like the SMG11. So I personally would recommend muzzle brake. Some people like to run flash hider. I used to run flash hider before this patch, but I personally wouldn't recommend something like extended barrel suppressor or compensator because there's already a lot of recoil in the SMG11. And if you want to nail those consistent sprays or you miss your first couple bullets and you want to recenter quickly, running something like a muzzle brake or a flash hider will definitely help you. Deployable shield has been one of the most broken utilities in the game for a long time, so you probably want to run that if I'm being honest. The only time you're going to run barbed wire if you've got so many operators that just have shields. Even then, some people will prefer to just take the shield. I think if they take away the shields, he might see a reduction in gameplay just a little bit on the top level.
Diamonds on my neck and I don't really mean to stunt. Right down, she really just wanna blunt.
First of all, I'm going to go through the basic site setups. So, as a Smoke, you are most likely the person to make all the rotates and all of the lines of sight for your team, whether that's on the site or off the site. You will have some people helping you sometimes, like an Alibi or Oryx, or as another Mute, like I said before. But most of the time you will be making all the rotates. So just, feet holes, lines of sight, and then holes you can throw your utility through, like your smoke grenades. So I'll just go through real quick and show you what a setup is like for the kitchen bomb site. I'll use this bomb site as an example. So as a Smoke, you really want to make rotates and sight lines that'll help you hold the site better, obviously. You just want to see like windows. You just really need to be aware of your surroundings and be certain that you're not exposing yourself to windows by making holes. Like something like this, you cut yourself off in the entirety of the kitchen because now the defenders can see you from outside, so that's something you don't want to do. At the time, a lot of teams will follow the default holes. They're default for a reason because they're very good. There's usually a default setup you want to run through, and that's something that you should just go through every round. You know, if you're a new smoke player, maybe dry run it, see how long it takes. You might find a flow on each of the sites. You'll mostly be doing the site setup and the vertical setup.
I got diamonds on my neck and I don't really mean to stunt. Right down, she really just wanna blunt. Cause these bad bitches don't want love, they wanna have fun.
Part 2, I want to talk about the types of plays on smoke. There are different types of plays of smoke. There's mostly 2 forms, but you can mesh the 2 depending on what part of the round is. There's an aggressive smoke, and then there's an anchor smoke. So there are some sites where you can play smoke in an aggressive manner. For example, Sapper from Elevate uses it on the bottom of Freezer stairs to waste as much time as possible, and he will always burn at least half the round sitting there, and some teams will just completely forget to clear him. So that's a good example of an aggressive smoke. Also an anchor smoke, which is your most common type of smoke because of his utility, the gas babes, or the canisters, whatever you want to call them. This is the whole reason smoke is a very good operator, because these 3 canisters he has, which total to 30 to 35 seconds depending on how you throw them, very strong to deny plants, deny entryways. That's why he's associated with the site, because you don't want him going off and dying first because of his utility.
Right down, she really just wanna blunt. Cause these bad bitches don't want love, they wanna have fun. We can kick it at the crib.
The types of plays that play smoke. So there are a couple types of plays. I will say in this meta, all types of players play smoke. Most commonly, supports and IGLs will play the smoke role because they're allowed to sit on site, sit on cameras, and they can direct their team around, or they can give information to their team to help them out when they're on their roams. This is something that is slowly stepping away as supports and IGLs will move to stuff like Cade and Maestro, more information heavy operators, or sometimes even Valkyrie. But you do see a lot of teams still play their smoke player as a support IGL type of role. Very commonly now, actually, especially in regions like Brazil and APAC, your flex players will be playing the smoke because his gun is very, very strong, and these flex players have adapted during the meta. Some of them used to be supports, and they will know how to play these spots properly, and they can use like that flexibility role. So they won't be hunkered down inside, giving info to the players. They can focus on themselves. And, if you have a smoke player that can hit their shots and can really just like lock in and hold in an area, you're pretty set for the round, right? Unless the rest of your team die. The least common type are fraggers. So players like Cyberzera from FaZe. He is a player that loves to play smoke. Not as much mute, I don't think, but he plays a lot of smoke. I think that's a personal preference. Spoit as well. Spoit does play a little bit of smoke, in ranked, and I don't know if he's played it in comp, but I feel like he might have at least 1 or 2 times. But he's a big fan of the SMG11 as well. So, fraggers also like to play the SMG11. I think they play them more for the gun than the utility, but nonetheless, they are smoke players because they do end up playing this type of operator, and they play for a reason. So, there's many ways to play smoke. He's a very versatile operator, but most of the time you will see him on the site. As previously mentioned, smoke is a site anchor most of the time. He is the power position operator. So for this site on kitchen, you will find him like half full with this shield set up here, just really playing close so we can utilize both his mid-range gun and his close-range gun, the shotgun and the SMG. You really want to put him into spots where he can throw his smokes and just deny the entries of the enemy players. That's pretty much the entire point of smoke, and because he's got such a fast-firing gun and such a strong gun in his shotgun, he's got 2 very, very good weapons. He's really good at capitalizing off his smoke canisters when he gets up and close. A lot of teams will play him far back so he can just like throw his utility from a long angle like this, or they'll have like a wall reinforced like here and they'll throw it over. It really just depends on what your team thinks and what your coaches think. But most of the time they will be playing close power positions where they can really utilize their smokes and playing around them. So I've already told you how to play as an anchor. You want to play those power positions. You just want to, sit there, use your utility for the late round. But another way of playing smoke is to hold a choke position and just waste as much time as possible. So we're here on Freezer Stairs on Oregon. And this is a spot famously played by Sapper on Elevate. He's played it on the Major. He played it all the way through APAC South whenever Elevate would play Oregon. He would sit here as smoke, an operator usually used for late round, and he would waste a minute, 2 minutes, sometimes he'd waste the whole round and kill 3 people.
More methodical way. Whereas the old Elevate that we know and love, oh, hang on a second, what is going on here?
Stop
Never
her!
mind.
What are you doing,
Oh!
mates? This man is just unstoppable. That position, those stairs, that is his. He owns
That
it.
is a prime example of how versatile Smoke is and how you can play him aggressively. A lot of people have the, idealisms of using the smokes late, but you can use the smokes to burn time mid-round as well, just to stop the enemy from pushing. Like, let's say, for example, the enemy takes a lot of map control. Like, they've taken all the way up Freezer, they've got up to Freezer door, they got into security, maybe even this hatch is open, Like, they've taken all of upstairs, and they're planning to execute. They've cleared the map maybe, let's say, 40, 45 seconds, depending if your team shot pre-places or not, or contested them, it just depends. Every round is different. But by sitting a smoke here with utility Jaeger devices, Melusi, and people watching the hatch they can't drop on you, and you're sitting here with a shotgun that can one pump from ridiculous amount of ranges, these smoke grenades really help you just burn so much time. Like, each 3 of these 35 seconds, if you're a good smoke player, maybe even 40 seconds, it depends. But you can sit here, waste 35 to 40 seconds, and after that, even the enemy will have to sit there, they'll have to double up, they'll have to send 2 people, 3 people, maybe they'll screw up their utility, their flashes, their nades, and they'll have to get more people to come over, and it's just going to waste a ridiculous amount of time just by playing this smoke in an aggressive spot. If it's a different operator like a Wamai or a Jaeger, you can't do the same amount of time wastage as this character can. This is just one spot, but there's so many spots you can play him. Playing aggressive smoke is, in my opinion, ridiculously underrated, and if you're a team, I suggest you really get into the mindset of trying to utilize smoke in different spots rather than just sitting on site, something like a Maestro or a Cade can do, because the time wastage with the canisters, especially if you're running a secondary burn op like a Goyo or something, or a bunch of C4s, you don't really need the smokes for late round. Like, sure, they'll help, but wasting a minute 30 on a staircase where you maybe even kill 1, 2, 3, maybe you waste, you win the whole round, that, in my opinion, that's a fantastic trade-off.
Shorty, break it down and get low. I can't rock with you, so I don't. But you said you gonna stay, but I know that you finna go. And I only wanna drop, put it all on my soul. Wait, I can't really fuck with you. Oh, wait, I should've never trusted you.
Continuing with smoke, a lot of players that don't play smoke a lot or don't want to learn smoke properly won't learn lineups, and that is a really underrated thing that a lot of players should do. Learning lineups just they're not invincible. There are a few ones where it is invincible, but it's way better than just pressing here and leaning and throwing your smoke, because you're exposed to, if this wall's open, you're going to die. There's just a whole slit here you can get shot from. A lot of people will hold this angle. This is just example on bank, but it's different sides. Instead, you could prone here, throw a smoke, and then players from there might be able to see you, but they'd be distracted. There'd be smokes and echoes and goes going off, and then you can smoke the doorway, and then they can't plant in this area. You can get a smoke even in the middle, and it just stops everything. Throw it. Oh, there you go. Now it stops everything. But a lot of players just won't learn these sort of lineups that just remove layers of risk instead of going up to a reinforcement and throwing it. As well as that, a lot of players won't experiment with angles through soft walls and vert and all that, and that's something that is also really, really underrated. If you can think of something scrims are made to practice, so if you go into a scrim and you think, okay, let's see what this vert does, just shoot it, or go into a dry run, whatever, probably a dry run, but the vert like this, I know it's been made, but someone had to discover this. This hasn't been here forever, and now you can see main stairs. This is a much harder angle. Sure, it's pretty impossible for the attacker to kill you here, but if your head's peeking here, they can kill you there, there, there. It's a lot harder because they can't see this. They can only see your body, so you won't get headshot. It's just little things like that, and angles like this one, where you can sit here and there's a pixel angle that lines up. Just experiment, guys, with the walls and the lines of sight that you can make. There's a lot of lines of sight, and Smoke is such a versatile operator. I really recommend picking him up if you guys want to. I think he's very detrimental as an operator, and that's why he's the first character in my fundamental series if it's going to continue. I think that wraps everything I wanted to talk about, so I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know if you want me to continue this series. I know this isn't as crazy tier 1 pro level experience tips and tricks, but like it's just very simple smoke stuff. And you know, getting the fundamentals down is the first step of becoming a great player. And if you learn the fundamentals of any character, Smoke's just one that has a high skill ceiling, just because he's so many different positions and play styles. That ends the video here. So hope you guys enjoyed, and see you in the next one, possibly.
I don't give a fuck either way. Now my heart cold like that whenever it starts slow.